preparing the stream. Okay, now that's there. It's there. We are now live. And hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Extra Connections Live. I am James Lott Jr., your host. The first show of the evening, of the year, of the Januaries, whatever, it's the first one. And I'm, of course, your host. I'm the James Lott Jr., of course, of this. And I decided to start something which I started at the end of last year, but I'm going to continue, is doing some lives with people that I know and don't know that well and talk to them about life, work, and all in between. And I have a guest who so our affiliation is that we were at the same place for years, AfterBuzz TV. But we never did a show together. I've never really had a major conversation with him. At AfterBuzz, we see each other all the time. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to get to know him a little bit. I'm going to get to know him a little bit more. And you too, he's a podcaster, a producer, and he says a pro wrestler in the making. And he's a huge sports fan, which I know nothing about except for football. So we're going to see how this conversation goes. Why don't you help me welcome George Hermoza? Hello, Mr. George.
Thank you, James. Yes, our path has crossed many, many times, but never more than a simple hello, how are you, things like that. So I'm very excited. I've heard a lot of good things about you. We have a lot of mutual friends, and that we met at AfterBuzz, Flobo Boyce being one of them. So again, I've heard many, many good things about you. So. Now we can be officially friends as opposed to just acquaintances.
Yes, and I heard you're very smart. I heard you know your sports, and I heard you know your wrestling. And so I have two questions to start. And thanks for the kind words. And so there's two things I want to start with, kind of going off what you're saying. How long were you at AfterBuzz?
I've been there since around April 2014. Started, and then again, I don't know exactly how long you've been on, but I know the structure was a little bit different. Later on. And so I was thankful to not have to go through that structure. I kind of knew a guy. So that's how I kind of came on, and it all kind of went from there, and started off doing the UFC, met some amazing people, and then just transitioned to the wrestling. I did a couple other non-sports after shows as well, which was always a blast. But yeah, 2014.
Yeah, I got there 2015.
Okay.
So my thing, which was funny, is the way I got in was through the back door, so to speak. I guess hosted a show, one of the soap shows, and I came in to do that once a month. I did that for like 3 or 4 months, and then I guess everybody liked me. I started doing other shows. I didn't go through the process.
Ditto.
And then they said after 7 months of me being there, and I also created a show.
Okay.
That was there. They said you should go through the process.
Yeah, I guess I was lucky to kind of get in there right before the process was a thing. So,
well, no. Here's the thing. My process was kind of funny. It was still before the process. My thing was they said they would show a video and kind of talk to you. I guess in that was back at the house in the theater room.
Yeah.
And that day the video didn't work. And when I walked in for the thing, half the folks that were there knew me from the soap show. You're that guy on that Days of Our Lives show. So Roxy and them were like, James, can you do the orientation real quick? Just tell everybody what to do. So I tell everybody I ran my own orientation.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's Flobo Boyce. He's in the Krista Marie, how you guys? Speaking of Flobo, we just mentioned your name, Flobo. Speaking of that. But yeah, it was you and I both got in at kind of like the midway point of Big. They were around like 10 years, I guess. So we were at the midway point. And I stayed, we both were there till the shutdown. So you were there a long time too. What did you gain from being at AfterBuzz, you think?
So it's crazy because I was never big on being on camera, but my whole perspective on just generally is because I'm a big behind the scenes kind of guy, right? So I always figured I can maybe, being somebody who wants to be, a producer and director and all those things, I want to be able to get the best out of whoever I'm producing or directing. And what better way to do that than to be somebody that is going to be the producee or the directee. I know I just made up those words, but I just felt like, So I just felt like that was a good way to kind of know what to expect from the on-air standpoint, from somebody who does want to be on camera and talent and whatnot. That way it can make my job behind the scenes a lot better, and vice versa too. Like just knowing, being on camera as well, knowing what to expect from a producer or director and things like that. So it just, I gained a lot of just perspective from both sides, from being an AfterBuzz.
Were you, so before that, on-air hosting was not like your dream or anything?
Never my thing. I mean, if anything, I kind of worked a lot of behind the scenes stuff, from like 2007, 2008, 2010, 2011, just pretty much everything before AfterBuzz. I just did a lot of behind the scenes stuff, TV shows, commercials, music videos, all the above. But yeah, I just never really had a desire. Like, honestly, like if somebody said you wanted to be the biggest movie star in the world, I'll say yes. Because I mean, the money's going to be good. But again, it's just one of those where I'm sure we both are in similar situations where we probably know a lot of actors and actresses, and they are out there struggling. God bless them. You know, they're fighting the good fight, especially now where maybe not so many things are happening around these times. But that was just never my thing. I want to be the guy finding talent. I want to be the guy hiring actors and hiring actresses. So kind of, again, God bless them, and hopefully one day soon I'll be in a position to hire, some of our friends and some acquaintances that we know are very talented, and give them a shot. Give them a shot. I have to say chance,
Yeah.
shot, as a chance kid. I'll came out.
Chance. Chance. I love making up words. I do. I love making up words. It's very interesting because I thought, okay, so my dream was radio. So when I came to AfterBuzz, I had a radio show. So for me, it was all about the whole, just like the audio part. I had the deep voice, the audio part. AfterBuzz got me in front of the camera, which I do, again, like you, was not my dream. I like being a producer. I like, and right now I'm hiring people to do my audio dramas, and I'm having fun with that. It's like giving them a chance to do some acting, and like that part is fun. Hiring hosts and stuff. That's a fun part. You're right. I've never thought about being in front of the camera. I'm like, I can do it. I mean, I like it. I mean, I have no problem with it. But it wasn't my dream either. Actually, if people don't know that, you guys watching out there, that wasn't my dream. I'm doing it because I'm doing it, but it wasn't my dream.
And it's crazy because being at AfterBuzz too, like around 2014, around the same time that I started AfterBuzz, I'm a college graduate. I have a degree in business management. But I was like, you know what? I'm thirsty for more, right? Like I didn't want to sit there and commit to getting like another major or anything like that. But I went to community college, around my house, LA Valley College, and just started taking broadcasting classes. Just because, again, it's all, and because there's a different kind of pressure where, let's say you go to, I went to school at Cal State Northridge, and I went to school, like I committed, I did all the classes, I struggled, I was up till 5 a.m. doing papers and group projects, all that, stress that goes into being a college student. So I was like, now I want to do something for myself where you don't really have the pressure. You just want to go to actually learn, And I took a couple broadcasting classes at Valley College, and I loved every single one of them. Like, and just kind of learning the audio board and especially because they had their own local, like radio station. I think it was 95.1. I think it was, I forget. But just kind of being able to control the airwaves, I guess, just in that area, and it was pretty cool. Like, because you had to kind of control it and also be the DJ. So it's kind of cool. Like I'm sitting there taking callers from people that are actually listening on campus. So, and again, just positive feedback is just so like infectious. Like I know like we all like to get positive feedback, but man, like it's great to hear, especially when you like hear from people. Like it's one thing to get support for your friends because they're your friends are always going to support you, but to get support from like strangers, that's a really, really good feeling.
So now I guess that gets great lead into AfterBuzz TV. You get there, they push Twitter. That was a big thing. I was on there anyway, kind of, but I wasn't really on there. And Twitter wasn't what it was now then. It was just getting there. Remember they pushed Twitter. All our shows are on Twitter. That's when I started gaining fans, or I call followers, or you want to call them friends, what do you want to call them? So what was that like for you? Because you did shows, obviously, where we did opinion shows. How was it for you, all of a sudden getting attention?
It was interesting. I mean, it was pretty cool because just kind of getting that platform. And also, like, I feel like I have a lot in common. And I'm not Mr. Internet. I'm not Mr. like tweeting every day, but I feel like we share a lot of the common opinions. So it was kind of cool, like thinking that I'm given an opinion that I thought it was just something that I thought, but then like, oh yeah, me too. Oh, that's a good point, George. Like it was pretty cool. Um, just kind of knowing that I'm not the only one in the world with that kind of what I thought was a unique opinion. Turns out there are a lot of more people in the world out there saying like, oh, you know what, I thought the same thing, or maybe even coming up with different kind of similar opinions, but kind of making it a little bit different. So it just overall, it's just cool. Like it's just so crazy how uh, being an 80s child and obviously growing up in the 90s, like it wasn't like that. Like you just kind of had your circle. And nowadays where the world is kind of, you know, metaphorically shrinking because we are so easily communicating with people from literally India, China, Japan, like whoever, like just all over the world. And literally on the snap of a finger, like we don't have to fax something over. We don't got to send a letter and wait a week or 2 weeks to reply. Like literally it's so instant and it's just so crazy. Sometimes I'll think about that. I'm like, wow, like the world's so small, big geographically, but just small, just like, wow, like, you know, obviously I know well, we're both in the US, but you can literally be in somewhere in Europe or Asia and we can easily have this conversation just like we're, in the same city.
Yeah. Also had Phil Svitek. Speaking of AfterBuzz, Phil
Oh,
Svitek
still.
is in the chat room. So hello, Phil. I owe a lot to him.
Me
Um,
too.
yeah, you too. Right, we both do.
Mhm.
So what's funny about that is I agree with you. And I just the other day I was looking at one of my podcasts, Darth Vader is Your Father, my Star Wars podcast, is big in
Mhm.
Australia. Okay, I
Yeah.
had no idea. On
Wow.
Twitter, someone said to me, "What's this podcast called Darth Vader is Your Father? It's beating my podcast to the charts. Like I'm charts. Like in Australia, like literally, I would have. I mean, I live in Australia. I live in Los Angeles. I would have no.
Mhm.
I have no idea. But the world is collectively really small online. You're
Mhm.
right, and that's
Yeah.
one thing that impressed me. Also, people in France, like we watch your show at 2 in the morning. Like you do in France 2 in the morning. Like I'm in bed at 2 in the morning. It's like this, but it's very interesting that it goes out like this is going out to everyone.
Yeah.
Whoever wants to tune in, whoever happens to be on YouTube, there you are. You can watch it, and that part impressed me too. I didn't know the world was that big. Like
I
that.
do a show every Thursday with other AfterBuzz alumni, Chrissy Olsen and Steve Kaufman. We started it at AfterBuzz, but we kind of kept it going on their own YouTube channel just to kind of keep it going because we have a lot of fans from Australia as well. Like they're literally like, they do like the super chat where they kind of give a couple bucks in here and
Yep,
there
yep,
to
yep.
ask it to have like a Q&A. And I'm like, whoa, like that's just so like I don't know how what time it is over there because we do our shows 5 p.m. on Thursdays. But
Wow.
I'm like, yo, like these guys are seriously like they're fans, and if like, I don't like to call them fans either because like, they're all friends.
Yeah.
Like it's a small community, and it's like I'm one of you guys. I'd be right in there asking questions if you guys were doing a show in Australia and I'm sitting there watching on YouTube. Like it's so crazy. It's just mind blowing sometimes.
I agree. Love Christy, love Steve, know them.
Mhm.
And we're gonna have Steve on the show. Actually, we're gonna have Steve on the show. Yeah, it's weird. I say fans like my family to kind of give them a construct of what I'm talking about. Like they're not my friends that I hang out with, but they're people online that like my work. But I hate that word. I'm always like they're my
Mhm.
followers, I guess. And I
Yeah.
hate that word too. I'm like I try to say friends, or it's kind of a weird. It's a whole weird thing that I never even thought about before. Like I never thought about fame or anything like that. So it's like
Mhm.
there are people who love my work. I mean, I guess they are fans of my
Mhm.
work, but it's a weird thing to say. It's weird to say, isn't it? It's weird.
Yeah, it's crazy because like I think we're kind of a product of our environment where we never would say followers if it wasn't for Twitter. Twitter
Yeah.
has followers and
Yes.
following, so it's like I'm not going to let Twitter tell me whether or not they're followers or not. They're friends, they're people that we talk with on a regular basis, whether it's a comment here, a like there, and
So Flowo says that if you did your show at 5, it would be 12 noon the next day there in Australia.
geez, oh, I mean that's a good time. I figured
Fine.
it'd be like 2 a.m., but yeah, I mean noon is a good time to tune in, I
Yeah,
guess. Yeah.
it's lunch. It's like, oh my God, Phil Street's like say, Flobo, no need to flex your 139 IQ here because you can see the high IQ. Go on,
I'm not
Flobo.
surprised. I'm not surprised. I've been curious. I have been curious about my IQ. I kind of want to get into Mensa. That's my next goal in life to be in Mensa.
I have a feeling you're very smart. That's what I
I
heard.
hope
And
so.
I've watched you. I have a high IQ also. I was
Mhm.
considered, I'm a little older than you are, of course. And I was considered they didn't have any certain terms back in the 70s. The term was gifted.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I was tested at first grade. I was reading fifth grade level. So they wanted to skip me some grades. My mother said no. She was like, I think for social reasons, he's way too young to skip grades. So they took me out of class, out of a school, and took me to a gifted school here in LA called La Tijera. Yes, that's the scissors in Spanish. And for us Latinos here. But I went to a school that was for gifted students that all had all tested. And that wasn't cool. I love that school. That's my favorite schools I ever went to. I loved it. So, but other than that, I have a feeling you have a high IQ. I have a feeling you do.
I always had a math thing too. Like when I was a kid, I would always like be go to the math class for this like next grade. So if I was in first grade, I'd go to the second grade class for their math class and things like that. So math has always been my thing.
What kind of kid were you?
Only child.
Wow.
Only child. So and it's only child, single parent. So it was good. Like I cannot make any complaints at all. I very humble, I'd like to think. I mean, I'd like to think I wasn't a troublemaker. Never really got into the whole bad stuff. I didn't have like a gang to hang out with, and I mean that both gang-ish or even like a group of people in time. Like just always kind of kept to myself. I mean, TV was my thing. I mean, I think I was easy to please, whether it's TGIF on Fridays or, wrestling on the weekends. Just, it was always, I think I was chill for the most part. I mean, average student.
Did you have a large extended family?
Yes, but not in America. Everything was in Peru. So essentially, like my mom,
You're Peruvian.
Yeah, so she's the oldest of 7. And then she came here and had me, but every family, like I didn't meet any family until I was 7. When I went to Peru, and it was the grandma's cousins, like just so many, like just I was like, oh my god, like I actually have a family. Because honestly, like growing up, and I never resented any father figure. He's around. There's no ill will. There's no like resentment and anything. He was in Peru. My mom came here, and she met this on her own. But like, yeah, as a kid, I was like, everyone has, both parents. I wasn't sad. I was just more confused, if that makes any sense. Okay. Just like, why does everybody have 2 parents? Or when is my family going to be complete? Again, not in a sad way, just more questioning, pensive way. But then as I got older, I was like, I'm fine. I'm fine with being an only child. I'm fine, being from a single parent household. And just, I honestly, and I get asked that every now and then, I'm like, do you wish you had siblings? I'm like, I don't think so, just because I like who I am. I think that's really important. I really like who I am. And I'm afraid if anything was different, I would be a different person. And I can't even think of how I would be if it was in a different scenario.
That's very interesting. You're right. You take any piece of it out and change it. That changes as a domino effect. Would change everything. That's interesting. I like that. Ironically today I had lomo saltado for lunch.
Oh my god!
I didn't know you're Peruvian.
You're giving me a really good idea for dinner tomorrow.
Oh, it was so. Oh my god!
Where did you get it from? Where did you have it from?
Okay, so I went to El Pollo Inca. I mean, I went to it's a chain here in Southern California. Went to the one in Gardena because I live in Inglewood. And so we had El Pollo Inca for lunch. It was very.
I think they're owned by like an Asian family, and now a lot of people are like, Asian family. Like, what do you mean? Like, because if you go to Peru, there's a big Asian population in Peru. Like I remember I went in like 2000, and I didn't go again till like 2009. So that was a 9-year span of me not going to Peru. And like the expansion of the Asian community in Peru, I was like, wow, like this wasn't how much, what I expected. I just didn't know. I had no idea. And I mean, yeah, I mean, it was cool. It's cool how like some of these, I guess, I don't know if it's officially a third world country, but I'm just going to say that it is. It's cool how much of a melting pot other third world countries are becoming. I know we always think of the US as that, and it was cool kind of going to Peru after a long time and seeing like, wow, like it's not just one culture. Now it's like a couple of cultures blending together, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I've dated a few Peruvians in my past, and I learned that one of the presidents of Peru was of Japanese descent.
Mm-hmm. Alberto Fujimori.
There you go. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I learned, but no, a lot. But you're right. A lot of those countries, Central American, South American countries, do have Chinese, German. There's a lot going. There's a lot going on down there. It's not just
Real quick. Did you have the Inca Cola soda?
yes, of course.
Did you
That's
have did you
that shit is
have
so
the
sugary. It's so sugary. I love it. Yes.
yeah, did you have the Lucuma ice cream?
No, I didn't.
You should try the Lucuma ice cream. Lucuma, Lucuma ice cream.
Come on.
You're welcome.
It's,
You're welcome.
I will.
Trust
I'll
me.
try it. I'll try it. I'll try it. All I know is I had that green sauce. I'm just pour
Oh
it
my
on.
god.
I love. Yes.
Anybody I take to that like a Peruvian restaurant, they just that green salsa is like
It's the
heavenly to them.
bomb. It's the bomb. And I have my aqua dia soup. It's in the refrigerator. I'll have it tomorrow. So yeah, so it's ironic. I did not know you were Peruvian. I knew you were. I knew you were Hispanic of some sort. I didn't know you were
Yeah.
Peruvian. That I had that today for lunch. I mean, that's like what I have for lunch. I love that. I love food. So you were kind of a to yourself kid, single parent, household, family in Peru. When did you start liking sports?
I was always a big sports guy. I remember, and it's funny, like now that you mention it, kind of going back to what I just mentioned 5 minutes ago, I was a big numbers guy. And so my mom, who was a nanny for the longest
Oh,
time, like that family had the LA Times, and she'd always bring the sports page. And I remember just thinking back, it's like, oh yeah, I'm looking at the sports page. But now when I'm really trying to like psychoanalyze my kind of mentality, my numbers thing, I love like the statistics page, like looking at like the
remember that?
NBA
I
scores
remember
and
that page. I remember that page.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
different now. It's so crazy how much it's not a thing anymore. But remember, like whether it's
Um,
baseball, basketball, and I'm like I was just in love with statistics. Whether it's like, oh, this guy has so and so home runs. Oh, if he plays, if they've played this many games and this many games, he might average this many home runs. I just remember it just whether it's basketball, baseball, and yeah, and so honestly, and again, I know we're a little older. As far as myself goes, especially where back in the day there wasn't 1,000 channels. There was like
no.
5, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And
Exactly.
and so back then it was like I was just kind of like a product of whatever I was exposed to. And one of the things that was just always on was Dodgers on Channel 9, Lakers on Channel 9, like the Angels on Channel 5. Like it was just that's what was on. And so, and it's funny because everybody's like, oh, are you a Dodger or is an Angels? Are you a Laker Clipper fan? I like any LA sports because that's what was on when I was a kid. I'm a big Laker fan and I'm also a big Clipper fan. I don't care what anybody says. I can be both. There is no rule against being both.
Why
I'm a
not?
big Dodger fan. Go Dodgers. Obviously, Dodgers and Lakers won this year. I'm also an Angels fan. I can be both. There's no rule against being a fan of both. So again, it's just what was on. And just sports in general. I was always a big fan of just watching it. Speaking of the family that my mom babysat, they'd always take me to Dodger games, which was like so cool to do. Yeah, so just little things like that just always kind of stuck with me. And even now, I'm like, I never took things for granted because I know a lot of people say like, oh, I should have within the pandemic, I should have done this, I should have done that. Well, I did do that. I did go to a lot of Dodger games and I did go to a lot of sports games when I could. And when they come back, then I will be there again.
That's so funny. Flowo says he studied the Incas in college. Huge fan. He wants to know what is in the white sauce. It's delicious.
What white sauce? Is it like the cheese? Because we have something called like papa la huancaína, where it's like potatoes and they put like a cheese sauce, and it got a bit of a
Right.
kick, which
I'm
is
like,
amazing. But it's like a cheese
you know,
blend. I don't know. I wish I was a little bit
I
more
don't have that
cultured.
either.
I honestly like that's one of my biggest regrets. And it's never too late to learn something new. But I do want to kind of make it a point to be more cultured as far as Peru. I haven't been there since 2012. Yeah, 2012. I am dying to go back. Like you have no idea how much I want to go back. And just because like it again, I went in 2000. I didn't go again into 2009 when I was an adult. And like I just didn't get a really chance to really embrace and absorb the culture. And that's something I really would like to do. I did recently buy a book all about the Incas. So that's on my I've kind of been reading a lot since the pandemic. So that's on my one of my books to do since I just bought it like a couple months ago.
Flobo says the white sauce you get at Peruvian restaurants with the rotisserie chicken.
I have no idea what he's talking
Neither.
about.
Actually, I don't either.
Okay, so there's different kinds of Peruvian. There's another Peruvian. There's a different kind of Peruvian restaurant there that's very much so pollo a la brasa, which is the
Oh yeah,
rotisserie.
I know that. Yes.
They kind of specialize in that, but there are other Peruvian restaurants
Yeah.
that kind of specialize in a little bit of everything. And I've never been a big fan of the ones that specialize in the chicken because I love the lomo saltado. Though I say like whitewash lomo saltado. I love the the Inca Cola and just that's funny. Yeah,
Well,
they have
I don't
like
know
a
either.
green spaghetti. They have a green spaghetti
Yes.
called
Green
Tallarines Verdes,
yeah.
which is amazing.
So I don't know, folks. So, folks, I don't know either, Flobo. I don't know either. I used to go. Well, let's speak of that. So, how strong is your Latino side for you?
It can be better.
Do you speak Spanish?
I speak Spanish with my mom.
Okay.
At work, whenever because I work in retail, whenever I have Spanish speaking customers, I'm more than happy to help out somebody that obviously can't speak English that well. But for the most part, I'm pretty fluent. I can I can go to any Spanish speaking country and hold my own. The only thing that I wish I had more in my Spanish side is like I can be pretty sarcastic and pretty like kind of like a dry sense of humor. I don't know how to translate that into Spanish. And I really wish that was like something I can do. Like I can be a little off the cuff. I can be like a little inappropriate at times and in the right way, hopefully. But I don't know how to do that in Spanish. And that's one thing like I really wish I had.
Yeah, certain cultures have different types of humor,
Mm-hmm.
and so you're right. So it's like they don't always translate. They don't
Yeah.
always translate. They don't. So I don't know. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
funny. Now you have a kid, right?
I do. He's 4 and like 9 months.
Oh, four. So, all right. So now, how important you think will be passing on Latino heritage in Spanish? Can you teach him Spanish? Do you know Spanish?
He understands it. He's more English overall, just because he's in preschool and they all speak English. But obviously, like little things, like we don't try to rush everything. Obviously, I think everything we just try to pace it out. I don't know if that's the right way to do it. Whatever. There's really nothing we can do. But yeah, just overall, like he gets his Latin side. We eat a lot of tacos. We love tacos. Um, we go to Peruvian restaurants,
Okay.
and now we bring it obviously to the house.
Yeah.
But yes, overall, yeah, I think he got a good brace of it. Like, you wouldn't know maybe walking into my house that there's a Latin side, but we try to talk to him every now and then.
Yes. Is his mother Latina?
Yes, but not Peruvian though. So he's got two
Oh,
different
cool.
countries,
Very
kind
cool.
of. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Puerto Rican here.
Mhm.
I'm a father, of course. I'm a grandfather myself.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, I have 3 grandchildren. I just talked to my granddaughter tonight, the Scarlett. I just talked to her
Wow,
tonight, Scarlett.
that's awesome.
I know I'm old.
Mhm.
So I was going to ask you, what is the one thing that really has changed you when you became a father?
You know what's crazy is like, this is gonna sound so bad. Like I've always thought I'm
Yeah.
a good person, like a good human, because they're like, George, like you're so patient. Like I'm always been patient. Like it's like there's so many things in the world that it's like so much worse than losing my cool or not having patience. Like I've always been a patient person. I've always been I'd like to think reasonable. So I never, because you hear some people say like, oh, being a father like has helped me grow as a person. Like it helped me really learn. Like I think I've always been that, but for the most part, I just feel like I didn't know I had that side of me, if that makes any sense. Like I didn't know. I never thought of myself as like being. I thought I'd be a dad, or I don't know how to say it. Like I thought I'd be a father, but I didn't know I'd be a dad, if that makes sense.
Oh,
Where it's like
to me it does.
yeah. So it's like just the amount of like I'm obsessed with this little kid. Like this kid is hilarious. But just I just wasn't expecting that. Like I just thought it'd be like, nonchalant. Oh yeah, I have a kid. But it's like no, like I take him everywhere because he's just so fun to be around. I thought it'd be just me and just whatever. But yeah, I cannot wait to take him like out to places again.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that's one of the things I'm dying to do again.
Yes, it's I had daughters, so I didn't have sons. So
Mhm.
only imagine. I have grandsons, and that kind of the
Mm-hmm.
closest thing. But I know having my second daughter, I took her everywhere. I mean, back in the day, of course, it's the '90s. It was your generation.
Mm-hmm.
I would just put her on a knapsack. We go everywhere, and
Mm-hmm.
it's all over the place. And they always say if you have your kids travel early, they'll be good to go anywhere. They always say if you
Yeah.
take them around places early, around other people and stuff, they'll adapt to situations easier. I don't know if that's true or
It,
not, but my kids are adaptable. They're really adaptable.
it's funny because like you mentioned that, and I'm like, I'm already trying to plan post pandemic. I'm like, even as like flying to like San Francisco, like I'd love to just kind of go to the Burbank airport because it's right near my house. Just hey, let's just take a short trip. That way, it's not too long. That way, if because he's never been on an airplane, so just something where maybe he's not going to freak out for 6, 7, 8 hours because that's how long it takes to go to Peru, which I would love to take him one day. But just something
Oh yeah,
short, like 45 minutes, an hour to San Francisco. Cool, let's go. Maybe spend a day up there and just fly back.
Do you see any of your traits in him already?
He's just, yeah. I mean, he's just so funny. He's just like I don't know what it is. Like I'm thinking like I think I'm okay as far as the sense of humor goes. Like I never laugh at my own jokes. I think that's weird. But but he's just so fun. I'm like, how did you get to be so funny? Like I don't know, like I don't know how if I should say this, but like just the other day he was just like spreading his butt cheeks, and I'm like, where did you get this from? Like what? I mean, he was just like being so silly about it, and I'm like, I can't even help but like love you, like you're just so cute, you know.
That's cute. I love it. Is he named after you, or is it a different name?
Yeah, Alexander.
Okay, so you do it. I love the name Alexander. Actually, I love that
Yeah.
name. It's a great name. I know. I was like, if I had a boy, I'm like, no, I think James is done. It's already you and I have common names. I'm like, just
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Yeah, I was a big
James,
fan of.
George.
I was always a big fan of longer names because, like, you have George. You can't do anything with George. But Alexander, you got Alex or whatever it is. Like I just like having a long name. That way, you can do things with the name if need be.
I have a friend Alexander who goes by Sander sometimes. So
Oh
the
yeah,
two ways
yeah,
you can break it up.
yeah.
That's kind of cute. But usually it's like it's Alex. Usually it's Alex.
Mhm.
Okay, so during this, we were talking about the pandemic. During this kind of strange year, and of course today was a very strange day. As we're doing live, it's a
Mhm.
very strange day in
Mhm.
American history today. Also, um, how did you find yourself motivated to even continue to do online content?
Boredom. Yeah, that's all. And not only that is again, we have mutual friends, and I see them doing stuff, right? And I don't want to be like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it. It's more like they were motivating. Like they were like, I'm looking up to them. I'm like, yo, like I there's no reason why I shouldn't do something as well. I mean, here I am, and Flobo knows this, Jack Farmer knows this, like Steve Coppin knows this. Like we can talk wrestling for hours. Like we can talk wrestling just for hours and hours. So why not talk about it with the camera on us? You know what I mean? Like we're doing this stuff anyways. Let's just put it out there. And if there's anything, being a producer yourself, if there's anything that anybody usually asks for, when you kind of want to kind of get into certain places, they all say, do you have content? Like, what have you done? Right. And for the longest time, the answer for me was like, I don't have any content. I haven't done anything. So there was really no excuse for me anymore to say like, oh, I haven't done anything. Now I have, I put together a wrestling channel or YouTube wrestling channel, and it is what it is. I'm baffled at how many people are still subscribing. Like I'm like the first 100 subscribers was like the most difficult thing I've
I
ever
know.
done in my life.
I know.
But then like the second 100 subscribers, I'm like, what? It was like 2 weeks. And I'm like, how is that even possible after I'm struggling for the first 100? Like, I don't know. I mean, it's crazy, but it's pretty freaking cool.
Name the channel. Tell folks what the channel is.
So I made a big mistake on calling it the Wrestling Chatter because again, the channel is all about chatting about wrestling, right? Because there's like an Indian language channel called Wrestle Chatter. So when you look for the Wrestling Chatter, it's like you're not going to see anything of mine. But I was like already committed to it. So that way, thankfully after the 100 subscribers, I was able to just get youtube.com/the Wrestling Chatter. That's probably the easiest way to find the channel. But it's fun. We do a lot of cool things on it. great, good shows. Again, just it's mostly me and other diehard wrestling fans just talking. But at the same time, yeah, at the same time though, I like, I want to be ESPN, right?
Okay.
Because and that's another thing that kind of motivated me. Where obviously during the maybe around June or July, when COVID was happening, a lot of other things in the world was happening as well. There were a lot of ESPN analysts that are getting paid six figures, um, doing shows on ESPN that didn't look any better than what we're doing right now.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm like, if they're getting all the views on ESPN talking about sports, and I know obviously sports is not wrestling, and I accept that. I'm like, then there's no reason why I can't do something on my end, that to make it look like ESPN. Obviously, I don't have a fancy studio, but at the time, neither did they, because they're doing a lot of stuff from home. So that kind of added on to the, well, I can do this too.
I have said to people last year was it made an even playing field. What national networks were doing, they're having the same Zoom problems we were having. They're
Yeah.
having the same connections we were having. So it's like, oh, okay. That's what kept me going last year too. It's like, well, we're all the same now, kind of. So it's like it's just actually doing good work, just putting out something that people want to watch. That's all it's all about. It's funny. Being at AfterBuzz, there was this consensus that there was the wrestling arm, and that they're very important, very the important part of AfterBuzz. A lot of folks. I mean, I know a lot. We know a lot of same people from that whole roster from over the years, from Kathy Kelly to everybody, all those people over there, and Mark Donica and all them. Then you have we were the soap people. So we had our soap block that we created, and I would talk to wrestling fans like, "You ever heard about your soap block?" And I'm like, "You ever heard about your wrestling stuff?" It was kind of funny that it was like this whole two separate things that were kind of the bookends of the regular, just like after shows. Like they were just like regular after shows. And so, did you know that you were in? Did you even know about kind of that whole that the wrestling thing was looked at something kind of almost like a I'm trying to find the word for it, but it was like it was just looked at. It was looked at AfterBuzz.
Yes and no. Like, because and it's so crazy how like there's so many similarities. For example, like there are some people that are like they're obsessed with Star Wars and obsessed with
Well,
comic books. Yeah, and I'm like, I enjoy it, but I don't get it.
yeah.
Then I'm like, what the hell am I talking about? I'm like the biggest wrestling geek. And I'm sitting there having to explain myself, like, why do I like wrestling so much? And I'm like, and I'm trying to sit there and like trying to make them understand. And I'm like, oh, you don't get it. And I'm like, no, they probably do, because they like the same thing, but just different genre or different narrative. It's like it's so crazy how like we all kind of have our own thing. And it's just like, just because it's not the same doesn't mean we're exactly different. Some people can like literally like wrestling, it's its own universe where there's storylines and characters, whatever.
Yeah.
No different than Star Wars, no different than Marvel, no different than, soap operas, no different than, housewives, like.
Right, all right, you're right.
Yeah, it's just so crazy how it all kind of is the same thing, but they still have a sprinkle of individuality of each thing. So which is just amazing. Like, yeah, it's so great.
So I mean, so I want to find. I'm trying to figure out the timeline. So when you came on to the wrestling group at AfterBuzz, who were the head people at the time? Who were the big people at the time?
So back then, I don't think people like to think it was cliquish. I don't think so. I just think we all kind of had our own thing. So Raw, the Monday Night Raw show was like Kathy Kelly, Johnny LaQuasto, Hobo, I think Dale.
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah, Dale as well. Fridays or SmackDown was like Josh Tara / Christian Rosenberg, Kaori Takei, which eventually Chrissy Olsen replaced her, Scott Narver, and I was more the pay-per-view, the once a month kind of pay-per-view special event, which myself, Steve Kaufman, and then we brought on Chrissy Olsen, and yeah, it just was like again, it may seem cliquish. I don't think so. I like everybody. I will be more than happy to just any chance there was. I'd love to have other people on the show. But yeah, just that was the time where it was kind of like everybody kind of had their own thing, but also like again, I was always pro, mixing things up as well. But that was kind of we took pride at the same time of of building our shows as well, because we all had our own unique flavor on what we presented for those 3 shows.
It seemed to us like, because for us in the soap show, same thing. We had our different shows, different hosts,
Mm-hmm.
rotating people came in and out. But it seemed like you guys were like us, where you produced your shows. I mean,
Yeah, pretty
I'm trying to sound
much.
fake, but not everybody
No.
produced their shows. We produced our shows very much because we had to watch 5 shows a week. Not
Mm-hmm.
everybody can do that. We had to take the AfterBuzz model and modify it because it
Mm-hmm.
couldn't just do. And we first started, it was 45 minutes. How
Yeah.
do you talk about 5 weeks, 5 days a week of a show and 45 minutes? We got longer time stuff later, but I figure wrestling, same thing. You have all those matches. You have to
Yeah.
do it a certain way. Flow Boy says, always respected George for making the WWE PBVs a space. That's where I and Jack piled our wrestling craft on.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Those are 2 people that I'm glad they kind of came into the AfterBuzz circle when they did, because again they were nothing but a delight. But kind of going back to what you said though, like the thing, and I did other after shows. Like for example, I did like The League,
Right.
which was a show on FX, and I did a couple of after shows that were non-wrestling. And the thing that I realized, and I'm sure you can relate as well, where it's like you can't produce or you can't do an after show for wrestling the same way you do a regular TV show, the same way you do with The Bachelor, the same way you do some of the other popular, Kardashians after show, whatever, like you can't do it the same way. And I don't know if maybe that's what AfterBuzz wanted. They wanted everything to kind of look the same. Some of it's good, some of it, I disagreed with, but I felt like with the wrestling, we had to kind of do it our own way, because sometimes we had engineers that are producers that didn't really know or watch wrestling. So we kind of had to do it our way, and thankfully there were some people there that got it because they watch wrestling. And, Mark Donica, who did a lot of engineering, and Jimbo Slice James Frank, that, again, are just as passionate about wrestling. They kind of got it. So it always kind of depend on who was our engineer. If we had somebody that was non-wrestling fan, we kind of had to, make sure that we still stay true, because that's what the fans want as well. We want to do what they know they're gonna, what they like as well. So just kind of giving them that as well.
Yeah, same with this. It's funny. It's so funny you said same thing. Not our engineers watch soaps.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, so I'm sitting there, and we had segments and stuff, all these things, like the quarter of the week and all these things. And so we had, like, back when we could show clips back in the day, I had clips and things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. So some of them, I remember, I think Alexis Torres, she started to watch some of the soaps. And a few of them did. And so you're right. There's a difference when they are into it. They kind of, help you. But I had great, trust me, Rock Donica did my show sometimes. I had great engineers that didn't watch the soaps, but we were entertaining enough that they did care. Like they did show care and go, okay, what do you need from me, James? What do you need from me? Like we work. We had some really great engineers that didn't watch soaps that were good. But you're right, there was a slight difference when you had an engineer who kind of knew what was going on. And I love me some James Frank. That's one of my buddies. Long time.
He's a
buddy.
dad. He just had
a
kid.
I know.
Yeah.
The cutest little boy. I mean, he is so cute. Him and Shannon had made a cute baby. I mean, I love that family so much, and I love my James. So we go way back. But yeah, so it's funny you just said that. I was thinking, like, yeah, it's kind of funny thing when I went on these other after. Was there ever an after show you did? You're like, why the fuck am I doing this after show? Was there one that you just like? I got on the panel, and you're like, eh.
So I did the last 2 seasons of The League, right? And the second to last season, I could not have been happier. I was with 2 amazing, beautiful women, 2 drunk girls, Jennifer Golden.
My girls, Jennifer Golden.
Yeah, it was such a blast to do. Oh my God, it was just so much fun. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do the last season with me, and so it was kind of a struggle to kind of like find people, and to the point where there were some shows where I did by myself and I hated it. So at some point I'm like, Phil, I don't know if he's still watching, but Phil, can I just not do it anymore? And he was like, and I'll do the show with you, George. Like I'll do, because he was a fan of the show too. So it's a point where Phil had to come on and do the show with me. But I was like dreading doing The League. And plus, like, I don't know what it is. Like, I didn't think that show was that good anymore. So to kind of combine with that, I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore. But I did it, still made it through all the episodes, or did all the after shows as well. But funny that you mentioned, if there was a show that I dreaded, I was like, yeah, it was that one.
It's so funny. I know I've done so many shows there too, but it's funny. I worked with them on Lachey's Bars and the Impastor. I did two series with them. And I love those girls. You're right, we had a good time. I have to say, I'll admit this on camera this once. The only time I did a show and blacked out was the two drunk girls, where Michael Rosenbaum, who's the star of the show and pastor, came on, and we had champagne. Now, I've drank on shows before, here and there. Just, it's not a habit. I'm trying to do a show, but you were celebrating whatever. And I had so much champagne, I think, because I hadn't eaten, and the lights. I don't remember the rest of the show. And I was like, I will never do that again. I learned my lesson, and I watched the show later. It was fine, but I don't know how I got home. I mean, there was a whole. I was like, that was an interesting experience. That was back when I was at the house.
Yeah, we had a show like that. I want to say it was maybe like episode 4 or 5 of the League, of whatever the second to last season was. And we're literally, because we were watching the show, and I brought a box of wine from Trader Joe's because it was bomb. And like, I don't know, man, such a different time back then, because I don't know how the hell they let us do that on camera.
I know.
The box was on camera, and we're literally pouring ourselves drinks from the boxed wine on camera live. But it was a fun show.
I missed the house version. I really liked being at the house because it felt like a community. It was really interesting. It felt like a community, even though it was farther out. I live in Inglewood, so it was way far out from me.
Wow.
But I didn't mind going because it was kind of like that living room, the big couches, the dogs walking around. Remember all that? It was just like, it was that one studio way in the back. I was thinking it was Studio C or whatever, way in the back. The trailer. It's like, I missed that. It just felt like we were in college, so to speak. It was like an extended period. Like, we're all there doing our shows. How you doing? Oh, yeah. In the kitchen. How you doing? It was just, I missed that part of. I knew they had to grow and do something else, but it was just, I kind of just missed. It was so unique.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was a lot of fun. That's how I met a lot of people. I met all of them that time period.
Because even so, so when you walk into that house, you had the living room and the couches and whatnot. And sometimes we'd be watching our shows there, and then people walk in. She don't remember this, but I said the first time I met Christy Olsen, she'd walk in, and then something would be on, and then we start talking about anything, and it was just, it was just crazy. And plus those stools in the studio were just so uncomfortable. I can't sit in those stools for longer than half an hour.
Oh my God, me neither. Those things are. So I started watching stuff at home. I was like, I'll just watch it at home. If I can, I'll get there, because I saw what they were trying to do there. I totally get what the concept was. It was like, they just were. So I used to grab some of the chairs, the backs on them, and I'd slide one occasionally. I was like, I'm James Lott Jr., leave me alone. I'm old. So I'd pull that card, and I would see, because after a while, they weren't comfortable after a while. I'm like, dang it. But I saw what they were trying to do. I totally get the concept, and the new studio was nice, and I can at least talk to you, because you're an old timer too. I do miss the house. There are folks who don't know anything about the house. They don't know anything about that, and it was the bomb. It was the bomb.
So, I used to always take sodas. Back when I was a soda drinker, I literally, every time I left AfterBuzz, I'd have 3 or 4 sodas in my pocket.
They were so bad. They always had soda. I mean, like you, I don't drink soda anymore, besides the cola occasionally. It's like they finally brought in seltzer water towards the end. I was like, okay, I can have that. But usually I brought my own drink with me. I was like, I have my own whatever juice or whatever. I was always at Tom's, number 5 across the street, and 7. God,
Tom's isn't bad though. Tom's ain't bad.
No, but if you have it too much, there was a time I was at AfterBuzz 5 days a week at one point doing all these shows. You know how that happens every once in a while.
Yeah.
And I was going there all the time, and I was like, okay, I gotta stop. It's like I'm a big guy anyway, but it's just kind of I was getting bigger and bigger and bigger for that fried food. But it was good. I had to stop eating that. So I went to 7-Eleven and I get the salads or whatever.
See, I'm more of a Daniel's Tacos, which is on the other side on Cahuenga. That Daniel's Tacos is my jam.
Yes, I love that. Flo says he stole 3 cans of club soda every week. It was just so you and Flo did shows together. Finally, you guys did shows together.
Yeah. Mostly the pay-per-view shows. And then like I'd fill in on Monday Night Raw. I remember one time, even me and Leslie Colon, we were doing the Monday Night Raw in Spanish, and I invited Flobo.
Right.
That is always going to be one of my favorite shows. Just Flobo was that guy. Like we'd be like, oh, sí, unas, and you have Flobo, sí. Like it was so much fun. Sí, muy bueno, muy bueno.
I love it. He tells me that story. I love that story. So he's a friend of ours, a good friend of ours. What makes him a good co-host? And you're not.
I mean, he knows his stuff, and honestly, like more oftentimes than not, like especially with these kind of shows, it's all about passion. Like it doesn't matter what you say, but if you're passionate about it, it doesn't matter what you say. Like because I'm gonna believe whatever you say. I'm gonna get captured in your words because of the tone of your voice, which again, the passion and every time he talks, like whether it's him or Jack, like I'm all in. Like there's no time where I'm dozing off. There's no time when I'm snoozing off. I'm all in whenever these guys talk, and that's what I love. That's why because honestly, like I didn't nothing against anybody at all. But like when I started my channel, like I knew like Flobo was somebody I wanted, Jack Farmer was somebody I wanted. Like there was a small group of guys that I knew I wanted because they would give me exactly what I wanted from them for the channel, and that is passion.
I agree with you on that. I agree with you in the fact that when it comes to like what you said, like Star Wars or wrestling or sports or soaps, you have to. Yeah, you can mess up a few stats here and there, but
Mm-hmm.
as long as you're into it, and you show the passion of it, people will be
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, they'll forgive stuff. They're like, okay, he's into it. And I agree with you. I think that does make the difference. You have to like really. You can't come on there and lazily
Yeah.
do a show. You just can't. You
That's
can't do
why,
that.
yeah. That's why I kind of, it's good that I kind of had that circle because, like, I know what they like and I know, like, what might make them trigger. Like, if there's, like, a hot take that I know they're against, then I want, because that's what I want. I want to be able to have that because I don't, what I don't want is essentially us talking about something and everybody's like, yeah, I agree. No, like, I want you guys to not agree, but I also don't want to, I don't want you to disagree just for the sake of disagreeing. I want you to passionately disagree because that's exactly how you feel. Like we had which I still have a video that I haven't posted yet on my channel about like, we were talking about the title belts, the championship belts, and we all disagree. Flobo had a hot take because he had a take that nobody disagreed with, but he truly believed in his heart that his opinion, was right. And that's what I like. Like, I don't want just cookie cutters. I want, literally people being passionate, whether it's an unpopular opinion, as long as they're passionate about it, that's what I want.
If someone has never seen a match in wrestling, has never watched a single frame of any kind of wrestling thing, why should they watch wrestling?
Uh,
I've never asked this question before. Of all my wrestling friends, I've never asked this question before. I'm like, I thought about it from you. I'm like, let me ask the smart guy. I mean, why should they tune in now? I mean, why should they tune in now to watch wrestling?
I think first people need to be open-minded because
Okay.
I think a lot of people have a very, very huge misconception about pro wrestling and that it's fake. And I think, God forbid, if anybody said this that's watching, I think that's a little, let's just say silly because like what pro wrestling is, it's it's audience reactions, it's emotion, it's passion, it's all these things that, like, for example, let's just say movies are fake. Well, but movies are actually scripted, and movies are rehearsed, and movies are produced. Like that's what a movie is. So when you say like wrestling is fake, oh, it's performance. No, but that's what wrestling is. So when you say wrestling is fake, are you saying that the audience reaction is not real? Because it is real. We're not telling the audience to yell or to chant certain things. That's them organically from the heart, with a lot of other people chanting something very similar. So the first thing I want to say is have an open mind when watching it. Um, just for the sake of, I think it's a combination of brutality, of maybe uh, kind of forgetting that it's quote unquote fake. There was the match Undertaker Mankind, King of the Ring '98, Hell in a Cell. Still to this day, like there's been no match like that match. It just brutality, drama, like just oh my god, like it makes you cringe. Like yeah, like that match, and I'm sure if Flobo's watching and anyone else that watches wrestling, I really think that match changed pro wrestling forever.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. I'm a '80s wrestling guy. I mean, I
Okay.
because it became popular,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a Hulk Hogan and Roddy
Mm-hmm.
Piper and all. I mean, I'm old school. It's kind of fun stuff, and I did do some '90s Steve Austin
Mm-hmm.
and Bill Goldberg and all that. I mean, I did a few. I mean, I know some stuff, but I haven't watched wrestling in like
Mm-hmm.
30 years, 20, 30 years. But I do. I do appreciate it, and I feel like it is a sport on some level. It's the same as cheerleading, the same all these things where it's physicality makes it a sport.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
And it's
part.
funny too. It's funny. I was actually talking to somebody today. And he's a lot buffer than I am, but he's not a wrestler. He's literally like nothing wrestling related. But he was like, "Hey, so when are you going to be in the WWE?" I'm like, "Dude, when I look like you, bro," because it and also too like you have yeah. And I was like yeah, because it's a lot of work too, and it's like you can't just sit there and you know just walk right into it. Like you actually do have to work hard to get to a place where you can make pro wrestling a living, right? Make it your occupation, and anybody can't just walk into it. You got to work at it. You got to perfect things. Like there are certain things that you think it's easy to do what you see on TV. It is not easy. Whether it's the actual moves, whether it's looking good, whether it's a timing. Timing is probably the most difficult thing in pro wrestling. Whether it's the psychology of it, like people don't realize just how much practice you need, and that's years and years of practice and training just to even get good. And yeah, I think I'm not trying to educate everybody, but I think if people just kind of realize that, I think people will be more open-minded, be like, oh, like as opposed to maybe looking down on wrestling. I think they can just look at it as a thing, but not as a thing that they look down upon.
Well, it's the same thing with soaps. Soap,
Mm-hmm.
I tell people all the time, they're learning 100 pages of dialogue a day, where an average sitcom learns 2 or 3 a day. I was
Mm-hmm.
films 5 a week, 5 pages a week. It's like it's always. I feel like there's a kinship there. Like both these two things that are so looked down upon. It's like, but they're actually. You think about it, that's a lot of talent has to go into doing this thing
Yeah.
correctly.
And you know what's crazy too? I just thought of the kind of the comparison now, where it's like in pro wrestling, like and especially guys like The Rock and John Cena say it all the time, where like people are so surprised at their ability to do one take because like they have to do one take in front of 20,000 people every week live on TV every single week. So then they're like, wait, you only needed one take. Like, yeah, bro, I've been doing this for like 10 years, doing the wrestling stuff. And even though they have that ability, there is not much opportunity aside from a small handful, obviously, there's not that much opportunity um, for pro wrestlers outside of pro wrestling. And I always think about like you don't really see many soap opera like actors and actresses be mainstream. There's a small handful obviously, but like a lot of these like people that are known to be soap actors, like they don't really do much outside of that bubble, and that's a bit of a shame as well, because like wrestlers, they have maybe even more of an ability to actually do the actual job of being an actor on set, but yet they don't get the love that some of the other mainstream A-list actors get.
Great point. That leads me to I'm gonna ask you a question. I've never asked any other wrestlers to see any wrestling fans to see either. Why do you think The Rock? Well, he has charisma, but
Mm-hmm.
The Rock has had successful transition
Mm-hmm.
out of wrestling. John Cena kind of too, on some
Mm-hmm.
level. He's
Mm-hmm.
at some level. Well, like, why didn't Steve Austin?
It's funny. I was listening to a podcast today and they asked the exact
Oh, funny,
same
funny. Because I mean,
question.
remember how huge he was. He was huge in wrestling. People outside of wrestling heard his name. Oh, John 316 thing. Everything was, he was huge. Good looking
Mm-hmm.
guy,
Mm-hmm.
presence, everything. It didn't, I mean, he's doing some like Redneck Island or something. I mean, I don't know what the fuck he's doing, but it's like, he's just not doing anything. I mean, it's like, what happened to like, why did he make it big?
So I think, and this is my opinion, I think for some guys,
Right, it's your opinion.
they try to rush it, right? Oh, Steve Austin, he's going to be a box office star. The Rock wasn't starring in his first movie. he was like a small part of the Mummy 2, and then that kind of catapulted into something, right?
Right.
John Cena wasn't necessarily starring in the big box office movies. He was in Sisters, which he was fantastic in. Like he was just doing a lot of like I love this cameo in Daddy's Home. Like he just did a lot of small things, much like a lot of actors do. Like Will Smith wasn't Will Smith. He was in Made of America first. He just kind of did a lot of not small roles, but just big enough to kind of plant your foot in there. And I feel like it's Steve Austin, maybe they tried to do that as far as just maybe pushing him out too far, too fast. And maybe it just wasn't his thing. Because he's in Grown Ups too. I feel like if he did like a movie like Grown Ups 2 back then first, then maybe he could have done a little bit better. And plus, like it was a weird transition of like there was that time period of maybe when Steve Austin retired and him trying to be a movie star, where the action hero was kind of dead for that time. Because remember, like I remember when I was growing up, like Arnold Schwarzenegger was the biggest movie star in the entire world. Throw in Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme, like Steven Seagal, like back then, like those guys were untouchable. So if Steve Austin became a star back then, I feel like he had a better shot. But there was that time span of like the mid 2000s where the box office action star wasn't really a thing anymore. It didn't really come back until maybe like the Rock and some of the other guys. But I feel like just timing mostly, but also like maybe they tried too hard too soon.
That's a very good point. I will agree with that. It's a great point. Because I know a few of the others, like Hulk Hogan, went the reality route. He went that direction. Oh, Dad, like that kind of, that kind of thing. And the kids actually, but they brought him back also a little bit. But the kids, Brooke became huge on that. But for a while, but you're right. I guess yes, if he had like 10 years earlier it come out, possibly when that huge craze was happening, and there's an action movie every week coming out from somebody.
Yeah,
I think that's a good point.
Especially like back then, especially, and I think about this all the time, like the late 80s to even 90s, like there were a lot of movie stars, and it's not no fault of their own, but nowadays, like how often do we see like a big movie star or like an A-list movie? Like now they got movies like on Netflix and Hulu, and like that would have never happened back in the day. Like somebody like and I think about like Whoopi Goldberg, like, people don't realize just how much of a big movie star Whoopi Goldberg was. Like she was ginormous.
Yes, she was.
Like everything she touched was like gold, whether the movie was good or not. Like,
you're right.
It didn't matter because Whoopi Goldberg was like a freaking star. And just those days are gone as well. Like it's just crazy how things have changed. Like Sister Act 2, one of my favorite movies of all time. Man, I love that movie. But yeah, like
I'm so shocked. Like I am you too, but that's so funny. Okay, you like Dolores Van Cartier? You like that? I love that. It's so funny. You bring up some good points. So now the kind of part two of that question is, so I know what's his name has that show on Netflix, the big one or something.
Oh, The Big Show?
Big Show. So are there any wrestlers you think right now that could transition to TV right now you think would be successful?
There's a wrestler, she's actually a female. I just think she's so talented, and that's Alexa Bliss.
Okay.
She's the one that just got engaged to Ryan Cabrera.
Oh yeah. Okay, I've heard that. Yes.
I think she's so talented. Like she has this like timing where like she's talking and like she can just I think she can do anything. So I honestly, if I was like somebody like a producer or whatever, I would totally try to get Alexa Bliss to be in my movie. And again, it's one of those where I don't want her to star. I want to just find some like supporting role, so that way it doesn't feel like I'm rushing into it. I think that's where people feel like you're getting shoved down people's throat. Like, no, like let it happen natural. Let it organically happen. If they end up becoming a big movie star, let it happen organically. Don't just say, oh, Alexa Bliss or whoever else starring in this movie. Like, let it just a lot of good things happen from that.
You have a good point, because my girl on The Mandalorian who plays Cara Dune, she's a wrestler.
Sasha Banks.
I'm looking at her name right now.
Sasha Banks.
Yes, she's on The Mandalorian. My show. Yeah, Sasha Banks. I love her. She's a supporting character who's really good. So I think you're right. Maybe easing them into the audience and seeing what they can do. Like, at least like can they just basically act like that kind of thing
Hmm.
first and go, oh,
Yeah.
okay, and then gradually. I like that idea. I do like that idea. This has been a very enlightening conversation, George Hermoza. I like I said,
Ditto.
we've never had a major conversation, I guess, in the last 7 years. So now we have one, and you're my new friend. I love this.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show. I know you have a kid and everything, but thanks for coming on the show.
No problem. Thank you. This was tons of fun. If there's ever a part two, I am giving you
Okay,
whatever
well,
you let me know anytime you need.
perfect. There will be a part two then. There will be a part two.
Okay.
We're gonna have a part two. Do this. So George, tell them where they can find you, your channel, all that kind of good stuff.
So you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, G Hermoza, GHERMOZA, the wrestling channel on YouTube, the Wrestling Chatter, www.com/the Wrestling Chatter. And also too, like I'm very open to ideas. If anybody out there wants to hear us talk about something, even if you want to kind of give us a hot take, we're here for you guys. You know what I mean? This isn't some like one-sided, like I'm open for any kind of idea. So anybody wants us to talk about anything, and if anybody wants to reach out to anybody, like I'm all ears. This is a democracy.
At least on the web. Okay, so in real life, it's no story. I, of course, am James Lott Jr. You can follow me where all James Lott Jr. is sold at James Lott Jr. and all social media platforms, including TikTok. I'm on TikTok, folks. And if you're on Clubhouse, that whole new hot thing, I'm on Clubhouse. And tomorrow, I'm doing my first room, talking about overcoming the fear of doing something new. Me and Cesar Espino are talking tomorrow about that at 11 o'clock a.m. PST at James Lott Jr. So if you're on Clubhouse, come see me talk about overcoming my fears of things. I'm pretty fearless these days. And I want to thank everybody in the chat room who's watching and talking. Flobo, Krista Marie, all you guys, Phil, you guys were in here. Thank you so much. It was a great talk. And of course, you can follow my JLJ Media, my online network with over 35 shows. I'm on every streaming platform you can think of. I'm on every audio streaming platform under JLJ Media. Just look it up and check us out. We have some great content on there, some great stuff coming up. And speaking of soaps, this Sunday, our soap block comes back. I am celebrating 4 years on one show, 5 years on another show, and 3 years on another show. And I have special guests coming on every single show. So if you want to tune to us, JLJ Media on Sunday. Everyone, please, please, please stay safe as you can. It's crazy out there. And this is called Extra Connection. So go out there and connect with other people, whether it's online, in person. Talk to people with different views, different points of view, different cultures. Go out there and connect. And we'll see you next time.